Championship week is finally here. Let's get you ready for it next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Friday, September 24th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And let's get you ready for next week. In terms of scheduling, there are 24 teams that have 6 games. There are 6 teams that have 7 games in the final week. Cleveland, the Tigers, the Royals, the Marlins, the Mets, and the Pirates. All right, Scott. 2 start pitchers. Who are you looking at for next week?
Well, since it is a light schedule here to close out the week, it's a pretty short list of 2 start pitchers. And I also want to point out that since it is the final week of the season and teams don't have to plan beyond next week, they might do some wacky things with their pitching staffs. I don't think as many as we're used to seeing in past Septembers, because rosters this September have only expanded by 2, so they just don't have as many choices to work with. But you can't be totally sure, and this is always true anyway, but you can't be totally sure that a pitcher in line for 2 starts is actually going to make them. But with that being said, I think Joe Ryan is the obvious number 1 choice here, only 48% rostered. He's allowed 10 hits in 22 innings through his first 4 games, had an 11 strikeout effort on Wednesday, and his matchups are against the Tigers and at the Royals. I think this is the first time all year that a pitcher who's rostered in few enough leagues to qualify for my sleeper pitchers list is also in the must-start section of my 2-start pitcher rankings. But I think Joe Ryan deserves that. Other 2-start pitchers, Cole Irvin at Seattle, at Houston, so bipolar matchups there, obviously. But he generally pitches deep into games, and I think it's worth it, him making 2 starts, especially since the first is such a favorable matchup. A real tricky one is going to be Josiah Gray, who had an excellent start on Wednesday, struck out 8 in 6 innings against the Marlins, had 20 swinging strikes, regained his slider, a pitch he had seemed to lose confidence in. But he was coming off an awful 4-start stretch where there were too many home runs. And his matchups this week are at Colorado against the Red Sox. So pretty bad, especially for a guy who's vulnerable to the long ball. I think there's a lot of upside there. And if you're selling out for upside, I can maybe see you using Josiah Gray, but I think most people would want to pass.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Joe Ryan, the way that he has pitched since being called up. Josiah Gray, it's a little bit scarier there.
I mean, obviously we're stretching it. We're stretching it with Josiah Gray.
Yep. Any single start streamers that you're looking at for next week?
Yeah, a couple pretty good ones. Alex Cobb at Texas, so obviously a good matchup. He just made his 2nd start back from a long IL stint. It was against the Astros on Thursday, and it was, a pretty good outing. 1 earned run allowed in 5 2/3 innings, 4 strikeouts. But he threw 93 pitches after throwing 67 in the first start back. So he was able to get stretched out enough that you trust him to go as long as he's able to go at Texas next week. So I think Alex Cobb, very attractive. Logan Gilbert against the Athletics, nothing special about that matchup, but the rookies pitched well lately. Shane Baz at the Yankees. It was originally going to be at Houston, but now it's going to be at the Yankees. And presuming his start against the Marlins, he looks as good as he did in his first start against the Blue Jays, then I think at the Yankees, even with that being an iffy matchup, the stuff is such that you could call him a sleeper pitcher for this upcoming week. I think Tyler McGill against the Marlins is a pretty good matchup. Brady Singer and Carlos Hernandez are both going against the Indians, and they've each had a really ugly start recently, but for the most part, they've been pretty steady here over the last few weeks. So Singer and Hernandez would be sleepers as well.
Yeah, I watched a lot of that Alex Cobb start on Thursday against the Astros. The velocity was up. He looked pretty sharp overall. They left him out there just a little bit too long. He winds up giving up that run in his final inning of work, but I'm with you. I like that matchup there at the Texas Rangers. Any sleeper hitters that you're looking at for next week, Scott, rostered in less than 80% of CBS leagues?
Well, the same ones it seems like we talk about every week. Frank Schwindel, still only rostered in 2/3 of CBS sports leagues. Frankie 2 hits. Yep. And the Cubs have the 3rd best matchups this week. So if you didn't already need to get Schwindel in your lineup, now you definitely do. Brendan Rodgers has been hot in September, has another series at Coors Field this upcoming week, and then at Arizona to close out the season. So that's favorable as well. Other Cubs I like include Ian Happ, Rafael Ortega, Patrick Wisdom with the matchups they have. Enrique Hernandez for the Red Sox, 4 lefties on the schedule, and he tends to crush lefties. And Lane Thomas, this is the most available one, only 26% rostered for the Nationals. He's been batting leadoff for them, getting on base a lot, having a big month of September, and the Nationals are the team visiting Coors Field this week. So gets to take advantage of that friendly hitter environment.
Yep, Lane Thomas definitely like that call. He's hitting for some batting average. He's getting on base, as you mentioned. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Obviously, love that matchup in Coors Field as well. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. If you enjoyed the pod, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'll be back again on Monday morning. Bye-bye.